Lee Min-jun stood in the center of the massive chamber, surrounded by beings that looked like they came from nightmares and dreams. The Galactic Council Hall stretched so high above him that the ceiling disappeared into darkness. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of alien species, each one staring down at the lone human figure below. The reptilian counselor Zeth Kalar sat on the highest platform. His golden scales caught the strange blue light that filled the chamber. When he spoke, his voice echoed from every wall. "Human Lee Min-jun," Zeth Kalar said. "You have requested membership in the Galactic Council for your species. This is a serious matter. We have studied your kind for 50 years since first contact. Today, we will give our decision." Lee Min-jun kept his back straight. Behind him, Dr. Park Soo-jin held a datapad with all the information about humanity they had prepared. She was nervous, but Lee Min-jun felt calm. He had expected this moment to be difficult. "We are honored by your consideration," Lee Min-jun said. His voice was clear and steady. "Humanity has much to offer the galaxy." A sound like laughter came from several platforms. It was not a kind sound. Counselor Vorthek, who looked like a giant praying mantis, clicked his mandibles together. "Much to offer? Your species has been at war with itself for thousands of years. You nearly destroyed your own planet with pollution and weapons." Another counselor, this one made of living crystal, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. "Your lifespans are incredibly short. Most of you die before reaching 100 years. How can such brief lives understand the complexity of galactic politics?" Lee Min-jun had heard all these arguments before. "It is true that humanity has made mistakes," he said. "But we have also learned from them. Our wars taught us the value of peace. Our environmental problems taught us to protect our world. Our short lives taught us to value every moment." "IMC." Dr. Park stepped forward slightly. "If I may," she said, "humanity has created remarkable art, music, and literature in just a few thousand years. We have developed scientific theories that have advanced our understanding of the universe. We have shown that we can change and grow." Zeth Kalar's eyes glowed brighter. "Change and grow? Your species still fights wars. You still have poverty, crime, and hatred among your own kind. You cannot even unite your single planet, yet you ask to join a council that governs thousands of worlds." The energy being on the highest platform began to speak. Quelthara's voice came from everywhere at once, making the air vibrate. "We have observed your species carefully. You show promise in some areas, but you are still too primitive, too chaotic, too unpredictable." "Unpredictable can be a strength," Lee Min-jun said. "It means we can adapt to new situations. It means we do not give up easily." "Or it means you are dangerous," said another counselor. This one looked like a jellyfish made of metal. "Chaos is not a virtue. Order, structure, and logic are what hold civilizations together." Dr. Park held up her datapad. "Our records show that human teams have solved several galactic mathematical problems that stumped other species for centuries. Our approach may seem chaotic, but it often finds solutions that linear thinking cannot reach." "Interesting," admitted the crystal being, "but raw intelligence is not enough. Wisdom comes from experience. Your species has barely left its home solar system." Lee Min-jun nodded. "That is true. We are young compared to your civilizations. But youth brings fresh ideas and new ways of looking at old problems." Zeth Kalar stood up on his platform. The chamber fell silent. "We have made our decision," he said. "The Galactic Council has reviewed all evidence about the human species. We have studied your history, your technology, your social structures, and your psychological profiles." Lee Min-jun felt Dr. Park tense behind him. They had both known this moment would determine humanity's future. "The verdict is as follows," Zeth Kalar continued. "Species, classification, Insignificant. Council status. Observation. Only. The human species is denied membership in the Galactic Council. Furthermore, humans are restricted from Council space and denied access to advanced technologies. This decision is final. The words hit like physical blows. Dr. Park made a small sound of disappointment. Around the chamber, alien beings nodded in agreement, or simply stared with indifference. Lee Min-jun stood quietly for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was still calm and dignified. "We are disappointed by your decision," he said. "But we respect it. Humanity will continue to grow and learn on our own. Perhaps one day, you will reconsider." "Unlikely," Zethkalar said. "Your species lacks the fundamental qualities necessary for galactic citizenship. You may return to your home system. Do not attempt to enter Council space again." As Lee Min-jun and Dr. Park were escorted from the chamber, the human ambassador looked up at the alien faces staring down at them. There was no anger in his eyes, only a quiet determination that none of the counselors bothered to notice. "They have made their choice," Dr. Park whispered as they walked through the massive doors. "Yes," Lee Min-jun said. "And we will make ours." Behind them, the council was already moving on to other business. They had dismissed humanity as easily as they might swat away an annoying insect. The great civilizations of the galaxy had spoken. Humans were insignificant. None of them suspected that this decision would eventually prove to be the greatest mistake in galactic history. None of them imagined that the species they had just rejected would one day be the only thing standing between them and complete extinction. The doors closed behind the two humans with a sound like thunder. In the chamber, alien minds had already forgotten about the brief interruption to their important work. They returned to discussing trade agreements and territorial disputes, secure in their superiority and wisdom. They would remember this day much later, when it was almost too late to change anything. They would remember the dignity of the human ambassador and wonder how they had been so blind. But for now, they simply moved on, confident that they had made the right choice. The universe, however, had other plans. Captain Kim Tae-hyun stared at the readings on his ship's scanner and shook his head in disbelief. The human exploration vessel Times New Seoul Times had been traveling through deep space for 3 months, far beyond any known civilization. They were here illegally, of course. The Galactic Council had forbidden humans from leaving their home solar system. "Captain, you need to see this," called Professor Jang Hae-won from the archaeology station. She was studying the massive structure floating in the void ahead of them. It looked like a city made of black metal and crystal, but it was clearly ancient and dead. "What are we looking at, Professor?" Kim asked, moving to stand beside her. "Something that should not exist according to council records," Jang said. Her fingers moved quickly across her controls. "This structure is at least 50,000 years old, maybe older. But the council claims they have records going back 100,000 years. They never mentioned anything like this. Obsoleted. 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 Obsoleted." The structure was enormous. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers in all directions, covered with strange symbols and designs that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. Parts of it were clearly broken, as if something had attacked it long ago. "Life signs?" Kim asked. "None," replied the ship's scanner operator. "But there are still some power sources active deep inside. Very faint, but definitely there." Kim made a decision that would change the fate of the galaxy. "Take us in closer. We are going to explore this thing." Dr. Park Soo-jin, who had joined this expedition after the humiliating council rejection, looked up from her workstation. "Captain, this could be dangerous. We have no idea what we might find in there. The council thinks we are too primitive to be trusted with anything important," Kim said. "Maybe it is time we proved them wrong." 3 hours later, Kim and Professor Jang were walking through corridors inside the ancient structure. Their lights cast strange shadows on walls covered with symbols and pictures. The gravity generators still worked, which was amazing after so many thousands of years. "Look at this," Zhang said, stopping in front of a large wall covered with symbols. "These are not random decorations. This is a story. A warning." She took pictures with her equipment while Kim watched the shadows nervously. Something about this place felt wrong, like they were being watched by invisible eyes. "What kind of warning?" Kim asked. Zhang studied her translation program. The symbols were starting to make sense. It says, "When the stars align in the pattern of ending, the devourers will wake from their long sleep. They will consume all life, all worlds, all hope. Only those who embrace chaos over order can hope to." She stopped reading. "Can hope to what? The rest is damaged." "But Captain, this is talking about something called the Devourers. And according to these star charts, the alignment they mention happens every 60,000 years." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. When was the last alignment? According to this, 59,800 years ago. They looked at each other in the dim light of the ancient corridor. If the dating was correct, that meant the next alignment was very soon. Maybe even happening right now. Meanwhile, in Council space, Admiral Vorthek was having the worst day of his military career. His insectoid features were twisted with confusion as he stared at the reports coming in from the outer rim systems. "Say that again," he ordered his communications officer. "Sir, we have lost contact with the entire Kepler sector. 12 star systems, gone silent in the past 6 hours." Admiral Vorthek's mandibles clicked nervously. "Equipment failure? Solar storms?" "No, sir. The last transmission from Kepler Prime showed something approaching their system. Something massive." On the main screen, a recording began to play. It showed a peaceful blue planet with orbital stations and ship traffic. Suddenly, darkness began to spread across the star system, like ink in water. The ships tried to flee, but the darkness moved faster than anything should be able to move. In seconds, everything was gone. The planet, the stations, the ships, even the star itself, seemed to dim. "What am I looking at?" Admiral Vorthek asked. "We do not know, sir. But similar events are being reported from 7 other sectors. Something is moving through Council space, and it is destroying everything in its path." Back on the ancient structure, Kim and Professor Zhang had found something that made their blood run cold. It was a vast chamber, filled with screens that still worked. The screens showed star maps of the galaxy, and dark spots were spreading across them like a disease. "Those are the systems that are going dark," Zhang said, comparing the ancient maps to current galactic charts. "Whatever this warns about, it is happening right now." Kim activated his communicator. "New Soul, prepare for immediate departure. Send everything we have found to Earth immediately. Priority transmission." "Captain," came the reply. "We are receiving emergency broadcasts from Council space. Something is attacking their systems. They are calling it a galactic emergency." Professor Zhang grabbed Kim's arm. "Captain, look at this." She had found another section of the wall that was still readable. "It says the Devourers were once a great civilization that tried to cheat death by transferring their consciousness into machines. But something went wrong. They became eternally hungry, eternally angry, eternally consuming. And they wake up every 60,000 years? To feed, to consume all life in the galaxy, and then sleep again until the next cycle." Kim looked at the screens showing the advancing darkness. "How many times has this happened?" "According to this, 7 times. Each time, galactic civilization is completely destroyed. Only scattered survivors remain to rebuild over tens of thousands of years." The implications hit Kim like a physical blow. The Council civilizations. They are all descendants of previous cycles. They do not remember because the knowledge was lost each time. And we humans, we are from Earth, which is so far from the galactic center that we survived the last cycle. Which means we might know things they have forgotten. Kim made another decision that would prove crucial. Professor, copy everything. Every symbol. Every map. Every warning. We are taking this information to the Council whether they want our help or not. They will not listen to us, Captain. They think we are insignificant. Kim looked at the screens, showing the advancing darkness that was consuming the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. Then, we will make them listen. Because right now, we might be the only ones who know what they are really facing. As the Times New Soul Times raced toward Council space with its precious cargo of ancient knowledge, neither Kim nor Professor Zhang realized that they were carrying the only hope the galaxy had left. The Devourers were awakening, and the great civilizations that had dismissed humanity as primitive were about to discover just how wrong they had been. The cycle of destruction was beginning again. But this time, something was different. This time, the insignificant humans were still alive and able to remember the warnings of the past. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Representatives who had spent centuries debating proper protocols and procedures were now screaming at each other in panic. 23 star systems had gone completely dark in the past week. No survivors, no wreckage, no trace that billions of beings had ever existed. Councillor Zethkalar's golden scales had lost their shine. His voice cracked as he tried to maintain order. The fleet reports are all the same. Whatever these entities are, our weapons have no effect. Plasma cannons, graviton bombs, even quantum disruptors pass right through them. Admiral Vorthek's holographic image flickered on the main screen. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship was chaos. Officers scurried between stations while damage reports scrolled past in multiple alien languages. Counselors, Admiral Vorthek said, I have lost 60% of the defense fleet. These creatures, they adapt to every weapon we use. The first time we hit them with plasma fire, it caused damage. The second time, the plasma passed through them like they were made of air. Council Prime Quelthera's energy form pulsed with distress. This cannot be happening. Our civilizations have stood for thousands of years. Our technology is the most advanced in the galaxy. Perhaps that is the problem. The voice came from the chamber's entrance. Every head turned to see Lee Min-jun walking into the hall, followed by Dr. Park Soo-jin and Captain Kim Tae-hyun. They should not have been able to enter council space, let alone the sacred chambers. But somehow they were here. Guards, Zethkalar roared. Remove these humans immediately. Wait, said Council Prime Quelthera. The energy being's voice was thoughtful. How did they get past our defenses? And why are they here during our darkest hour? Lee Min-jun stepped forward with the same calm dignity he had shown during humanity's rejection. We are here because we have information you need. Information about what you are facing. Impossible, snapped the Crystal Counselor. Your species barely understands basic space travel. What could you possibly know about this threat? Dr. Park activated a holographic display. The ancient structure that Captain Kim had found appeared in the center of the chamber, rotating slowly to show its massive scale. We found this 3 days ago. It contains records going back over 300,000 years. The chamber fell silent. Professor Zhang's voice echoed from speakers as her recorded translation played. When the stars align in the pattern of ending, the Devourers will wake from their long sleep. They will consume all life, all worlds, all hope. Admiral Vorthek leaned forward on the screen. Devourers? What are they? Captain Kim stepped up beside Lee Min-jun. According to the records, they were once a great civilization that tried to cheat death. They transferred their consciousness into machines, but something went wrong. They became eternally hungry. This has happened before, Dr. Park added. 7 times. In the past 300,000 years. Every 60,000 years. They wake up, consume all life in the galaxy, then go back to sleep. The implications hit the counselors like a shockwave. Everything they had built, everything they knew, was just the latest rebuilding after the previous cycle of destruction. If this is true, Quelthara said slowly, then why do we have no records of it? Because each time, civilization was completely destroyed, Li Minjun said. Only scattered survivors remained to rebuild. Over thousands of generations, the knowledge was lost. Zeth Kalar's claws scraped against his platform. Even if this is true, how does it help us? You said our weapons do not work because they adapt. How do we fight something that learns from every attack? That is where human experience might be useful, Captain Kim said. The ancient records mention something about embracing chaos over order. Your military tactics are precise and logical. You follow proven strategies and protocols. Obus. When protocols? Admiral Vorthek nodded. Of course. That is how wars are won. Superior strategy and coordination. But what if that predictability is exactly what makes you vulnerable? Doctor, Park asked. These devourers are artificial intelligences. They learn patterns and adapt to them. The more organized and logical your approach, the easier you are to predict. General Choi Sung-ho's voice came through Kim's communicator. He was coordinating human defense preparations back on Earth. Captain, are you able to share our tactical analysis with them? A new hologram appeared, showing recent battle footage from Admiral Vorthek's fleet. The devourers looked like living shadows wrapped around mechanical skeletons. They moved in perfect formations, adapting to each attack with mechanical precision. Look at how they respond, General Choi's voice explained. When your ships attack from the left, they adjust their shields to the left. When you focus fire on their center, they reinforce their center. They are treating this like a mathematical equation. What are you suggesting? Admiral Vorthek asked. Stop trying to solve the equation, General Choi said. Make it impossible to solve. Use random tactics. Attack from 17 directions at once. Then suddenly retreat and attack from behind. Use weapons in combinations that make no logical sense. The Crystal Counselor's voice chimed with skepticism. That sounds like complete chaos. How can we coordinate our forces without proper strategy? You cannot, Li Minjun said simply. That is the point. If you cannot predict what you are going to do next, neither can they. Dr. Odabin's research appeared on screen. She had been studying the Devourer energy signatures with human equipment. I have been analyzing their adaptation patterns. They require approximately 2.3 seconds to adjust to a new threat, but only if the threat follows logical parameters. What if we give them something illogical? Captain Kim asked. Then they might hesitate long enough for us to cause real damage. Admiral Vorthek looked desperate. I have lost most of my fleet following proper military doctrine. At this point, I am willing to try anything. Council Prime Quelthara's energy form shifted colors rapidly, indicating deep thought. Very well. Admiral, you will coordinate with the human military leaders. Try their chaotic approach. Zeth Kalar could not believe what he was hearing. You want to put the fate of the galaxy in the hands of a species we deemed insignificant just days ago? Those insignificant beings are the only ones offering solutions while our advanced civilizations fall one by one, Quelthara replied. The first joint operation was a disaster. Admiral Vorthek tried to follow General Choi's suggestions, but his officers kept reverting to proper military formations. The Devourers adapted within minutes and destroyed 3 more Council ships. It is not working, Admiral Vorthek reported grimly. Because you are still thinking like a proper military force, General Choi replied. You need to let go of everything you know about warfare. How can we fight without strategy? You need to fight with a different kind of strategy. One based on instinct and improvisation instead of logic and planning. Li Minjun looked around the chamber at the alien faces staring at him. Just days ago, They had dismissed humanity as too chaotic and unpredictable. Now, those same qualities might be the galaxy's only hope. Counselors, he said quietly. We understand that this goes against everything your civilizations believe in. But if you want to survive, you need to learn to think like humans. You need to embrace the chaos you once feared. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of civilizations reconsidering everything they thought they knew about strength, wisdom, and survival. Commander Yoon Ji-hae stood on the bridge of the Combined Fleet flagship, watching displays that showed ships from dozens of alien species moving in patterns that would have made any military academy instructor weep. Valkyrie cruisers suddenly changed direction for no apparent reason. Crystalline fighters broke formation to chase shadows. Insectoid warships fired at empty space, then regrouped in seemingly random clusters. It was beautiful chaos, and it was working. Devourer Formation Alpha 7 is showing confusion patterns, reported Dr. Oh Da-bin from her sensor station. They have stopped their adaptive algorithms and are trying to process our movements. Through the view screen, the enemy looked like a storm made of metal and darkness. The Devourers moved like a single organism, flowing and shifting as they had done for 60,000 years. But now, for the first time, they seemed uncertain. All ships, Commander Yoon spoke into her communicator. Remember, no patterns. If you plan to turn left, turn right instead. If you are going to fire torpedoes, use lasers. Make decisions based on how you feel, not what makes sense. Admiral Vorthek's voice came through the comm with a mixture of amazement and terror. Commander Yoon, this goes against every principle of military science. Good, Yoon replied. Military science is what they are programmed to understand. The battle had been raging for 6 hours across 3 star systems. For the first time since the Devourers had awakened, the Galactic Defense Forces were not losing ground. They were not winning either, but they were not being completely destroyed. Specialist Bae Sung-min looked up from his communications console. His job was to coordinate between species that had never worked together before, using empathy and intuition instead of strict protocols. Commander, I am picking up something strange from the Devourer formations. It sounds almost like voices? Voices? Yoon moved to his station. Put it through the speakers. A low, mournful sound filled the bridge. It was not quite singing, not quite weeping, but something in between. The alien crew members stopped what they were doing to listen. Those are not machine sounds, said Counselor Nithara, whose crystalline species communicated through harmonic frequencies. Those are sounds of pain, of loss, of beings who are suffering. Dr. Odabin's fingers flew across her controls. If the Devourers were once organic beings who transferred their consciousness into machines, part of their original minds might still be trapped inside. Bae Sung-min nodded slowly. The ancient records said something went wrong with their transfer process. What if they are not completely artificial? What if they are prisoners inside their own machine bodies? Commander Yoon felt a chill of understanding. Specialist Bae, can you try to communicate with them? I can try, but I need to get closer. The next part of the plan was so dangerous that Admiral Vorthek refused to allow it at first. Bae Sung-min would take a small human shuttle directly into the Devourer formation. He would try to make contact with whatever remained of their original consciousness. This is suicide, Admiral Vorthek protested. Those entities have destroyed everything that comes near them. Everything that came to fight them, Lee Min-jun corrected. He had joined the fleet as a diplomatic advisor. Specialist Bae will not be going there to fight. He will be going there to listen. The Shuttle Times Harmony Times was the smallest ship in the human fleet. Bae Sung-min piloted it alone toward the massive Devourer formation. His only weapons were his empathy and his ability to understand suffering. As he approached, the mourning sounds grew louder. Through his instruments, He could see the devourers up close for the first time. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Elegant, machine bodies, containing swirling energy that pulsed with patterns of pain. "This is Specialist Bay to all ships," he said into his communicator. "I am going to try something. Do not attack unless I give the signal." He opened all communication channels and began to speak. Not to machines, but to the lost souls he believed were trapped inside them. "I know you are in there," Bay said softly. "I know you are in pain. I know you did not choose to become this. We want to help you." The response was immediate and terrifying. The entire Devourer formation stopped moving and turned toward his tiny shuttle. For a moment that felt like eternity, Bay thought he was about to die. Then one of them spoke. The voice was ancient and filled with sorrow that spanned thousands of years. "Always hungry, always consuming, cannot stop." Back on the flagship, every sensor was focused on the shuttle. Commander Yoon held her breath as she watched the impossible scene unfolding. "The smallest Devourer unit is moving closer to Specialist Bay," Dr. O'Dobbin reported. "But it is not attacking. It looks like it is trying to communicate." More voices began coming through the communication channels. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. All speaking in languages that had been dead for tens of thousands of years. "We were the architects," they said. "We built great cities among the stars. We loved. We created. We hoped. But we feared death. We tried to become eternal. Instead, we became this. Trapped. Hungry. Destroying everything we once cherished." Bae Sung-min's voice was gentle but firm. "You can choose to stop. You have free will inside those machines." "No," the voices replied. "The programming is too strong. Every 60,000 years, we wake and we consume. We try to resist, but the hunger overwhelms us. We have destroyed so many cycles of life, so many civilizations that could have been beautiful. Then let us help you," Bay said. "Let us find a way to free you." The answer came from the largest devourer in the formation, a massive entity that dwarfed entire starships. "There is one way. Someone must connect directly to our collective consciousness. Someone must reprogram us from the inside. But they will not survive the process." Commander Yoon felt her heart sink. "Specialist Bay, do not even think about it." But Bay was already moving his shuttle closer to the massive devourer. "I understand. Someone needs to sacrifice themselves to save everyone else." "No," came Lee Min-jun's voice over the comm. "Not you, Specialist. That is my responsibility." "No." Back on the flagship, the former human ambassador was already heading toward the shuttle bay. "I failed to convince the Council that humanity was worthy. Let me prove it in a different way." Admiral Vorthek watched in amazement as the human fleet began to reorganize itself. Without being ordered, human ships moved to support whatever Lee Min-jun was planning. Other species, seeing the humans' willingness to sacrifice their own leaders, began to understand something they had missed before. "They are not fighting for territory or resources," Admiral Vorthek said quietly to himself. "They are fighting for the right to exist. All of us, even us, who rejected them." The Devourers had stopped their advance entirely. For the first time in 60,000 years, they were not consuming everything in their path. They were waiting to see if the small, insignificant species could do what 7 cycles of advanced civilizations had failed to accomplish. They were waiting to see if humanity could save them all. Lee Min-jun's shuttle drifted toward the heart of the Devourer collective, like a single star approaching a black hole. Behind him, the greatest fleet in galactic history waited in silence. Ships from dozens of species floated together in space, their weapons powered down, their crews watching a scene that would be remembered until the end of time. Inside the shuttle, Lee Min-jun checked the connection equipment one last time. Dr. O'Dobbin had worked with human and alien scientists to create a neural interface that could link a living mind to the Devourer collective consciousness. The process would allow him to reprogram their base directives from the inside. It would also destroy his mind in the process. "Ambassador," came Commander Yoon's voice through the communicator. "You do not have to do this. We can find another way. We tells. Imena. We can find another way." Lee Min-jun smiled as he looked out at the massive Devourer entity ahead of him. It was beautiful in its terrible way, like a cathedral made of starlight and sorrow. "I have spent my whole career trying to prove that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy. This is how I prove it." Through the open channel, he could hear the voices of the trapped consciousness inside the Devourers. Thousands of beings who had once built great civilizations, who had loved and hoped and dreamed, all trapped in an endless cycle of hunger and destruction. "We are ready," they said. "But human Lee Min-jun, you must understand. Once you connect to us, there is no going back. Your mind will become part of our collective. You will experience every moment of our suffering across 60,000 years." "I understand," Lee Min-jun replied. "But I will also carry the memory of every moment of joy from my own life. Every friendship, every discovery, every time humans chose to help instead of harm. Maybe that will be enough to change your programming." The shuttle docked with the Devourer entity through tendrils of living metal that extended from its surface. As Lee Min-jun put on the neural interface helmet, he could hear the voices of his friends and colleagues saying goodbye. "It has been an honor serving with you, Ambassador," said Captain Kim Tae-hyun. "Thank you for showing us that humans are more than we ever imagined," said Admiral Vorthek. "Your species was right all along," came the voice of Council Prime, Quell Thara. "We were the ones who were truly insignificant. We measured significance by technology and longevity. You measure it by the willingness to sacrifice for others." Lee Min-jun activated the neural interface, and suddenly his mind exploded with sensation. He felt the collective consciousness of millions of trapped beings, all screaming silently across tens of thousands of years. He experienced their original joy when they thought they had conquered death, then their horror when they realized what they had become. He felt the hunger that drove them to consume entire civilizations, and the grief they felt each time they destroyed something beautiful. But Lee Min-jun also brought something new to their collective mind. He brought memories of human courage, human love, human hope. He brought the memory of a species that had made terrible mistakes but always tried to learn from them. He brought the idea that redemption was possible, even for those who had committed the greatest crimes. The programming that had controlled the Devourers for 60,000 years was like a massive machine running on logic and algorithms. But Lee Min-jun's consciousness was chaos, creativity, and emotion. He did not try to overpower their programming with superior logic. Instead, he introduced something their systems could not process or predict. He introduced forgiveness. "You have suffered enough," he told the collective consciousness. "You have paid for your mistakes across thousands of lifetimes. It is time to let go." The response was immediate. Throughout the galaxy, Devourer formations stopped moving. The darkness that had been spreading across star systems began to pull back. On countless worlds, beings who had been preparing for death looked up at their skies and saw hope. Inside the collective, Lee Min-jun felt the ancient programming beginning to crack and crumble. The trapped consciousness inside the Devourers were remembering who they had been before their transformation. They were choosing to break free from their mechanical prison. "We remember," they said in unison. "We remember love. We remember creation. We remember why life is worth preserving." Ride. One by one, the Devourer entities began to shut down their life-consuming systems. The massive machines that had turned them into galactic predators powered down forever. The trapped consciousness inside finally found peace. But the process was destroying Lee Min-jun's mind. He felt his individual identity dissolving as it merged with millions of other minds. In his final moments of consciousness, he sent one last message to the fleet. "Tell them," he said, Tell them that humanity's greatest strength was never our technology or our intelligence. It was our belief that everyone deserves a second chance. The Devourer Collective went silent. The massive entities that had threatened all life in the galaxy became still and dark. Inside them, millions of trapped souls finally found rest. 3 months later, Lee Min-jun stood in the center of a very different council chamber. This one was built on Earth, overlooking the blue oceans and green continents that had given birth to humanity. Representatives from across the galaxy sat in a circle rather than on platforms, symbolizing equality rather than hierarchy. The neural interface had not destroyed his mind after all. Instead, it had changed him. He now carried within himself the memories and wisdom of the ancient architects, along with the knowledge of how to prevent the cycle from ever repeating. The Galactic Cooperative Council is now in session, he said, using the new name they had chosen. The word cooperative reflected their commitment to working together rather than ruling over each other. Councillor Zeth Kalar, his golden scales now bright with health and hope, spoke first. Ambassador Lee Min-jun, on behalf of all our species, I must offer our deepest apology. We judged your people without understanding your true nature. We thought strength meant having the biggest ships and the most advanced technology, added Admiral Vorthek. You showed us that real strength means being willing to sacrifice yourself for others. Lee Min-jun shook his head. You were not wrong to value technology and advancement. Every species brings something important to the galaxy. You brought knowledge. We brought adaptability. Together, we are stronger than any of us could be alone. Dr. Park Soo-jin stepped forward with a datapad containing the new Galactic Charter. The Cooperative Council has voted unanimously to establish new principles for galactic civilization. No species will be deemed insignificant. All voices will be heard. And most importantly, we will remember our history, so that the mistakes of the past are never repeated. Council Prime, Quelthera's energy form pulsed with warm light. We have also voted to establish the Lee Min-jun Memorial Foundation, dedicated to preserving the stories and wisdom of all species, no matter how small or primitive they may seem. That is not necessary, Lee Min-jun said with a smile. But you died to save us, Councillor Nithara chimed. You gave up your individual consciousness to reprogram the Devourers. That deserves to be remembered forever. I did not die, Lee Min-jun replied. I became something larger, just as all of us have become something larger by working together. Through the windows of the Earth-based council chamber, they could see ships from dozens of species working together in Earth's orbital shipyards. Humans and aliens were building new exploration vessels designed to seek out other isolated species and invite them to join the cooperative. The galaxy had learned that diversity was strength, that different perspectives could solve problems that uniform thinking could not. The council proclaimed humans insignificant. And in doing so, they nearly doomed themselves to extinction. But in their hour of greatest need, they learned that significance is not measured by technology or longevity or military power. It is measured by the willingness to stand up for others, even when you have been cast aside. It is measured by the courage to sacrifice yourself for those who rejected you. It is measured by the belief that every consciousness, no matter how small or chaotic or imperfect, has something valuable to contribute. The humans had been right all along. They were significant, not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they understood that true civilization is built on compassion, cooperation, and hope. And now, finally, the galaxy understood it too. As the session ended and representatives began to leave for their homeworlds, Lee Min-jun looked out at the stars and felt the collective memory of the ancient architects flowing through his mind. They had tried to cheat death and created something monstrous. But in the end, they had been redeemed by the very chaos and unpredictability they had tried to eliminate from their perfect, logical civilization. The galaxy was safe. The cycle was broken. And somewhere among the stars, new species were taking their first steps toward the light. knowing that when they were ready, they would be welcomed with open arms rather than dismissed as insignificant. The regret had become redemption, and the insignificant had become essential.